Hello, my name is Christian Budd, and today I am going to go through this application that I've been building over the last little while. Um, it's kind of an interesting project for me to do because it was all done by coding with the Claude AI. I don't really know how to code. I don't have a background in it. Um, I've wanted to kind of make a program for a long time, but unfortunately, I don't really have the knowledge to do it and the right way to do it. But um, I decided, well, let's just see what can be done with AI and trying to uh, vibe code, so to speak. And originally, this started as a very simple paint swapper program, and it kind of morphed and became a little bit of mission creep into something a little bit more interesting and functional. So, um, yeah, let's talk about what this is and what it's supposed to do. Um, so it has a couple different functions. Obviously, for just paint swapping, you could use this in official racing or in league or hosted sessions very easily, and it would be just fine to do that. But it also does have a pretty high value for AI component, which I will talk about more in the second half of the video because I know people aren't necessarily super into AI. You either like that or you don't. So what I'm going to focus on first is just kind of how the program works and how it applies paints, and then we'll get into how it works with AI later on. But with that being said, so let's go ahead and load up the sim here because it's just easier to demonstrate this stuff. Um, And I just kind of point out, so we got a settings and run program tab here. I put in my user ID for iRacing. That is just so that this general setting of keeping your car persistent, or if you're using the the driver ID rosters and things like that, like it just helps to have that in there so it knows always to apply the right paint to your car, no matter what it does with everybody else's. And then we do have some system paths. So the master library is kind of the database for all of your paint schemes. So unlike trading paints, which stores them all online on a database and calls them, with this you do have to have them on your local machine. That makes it very quick to download and transfer your paints, but at the same time, you got to have them all there. So, but with that said, we'll take a look at that master database because all it really is just a mirror of the iRacing paint folders. And we'll actually go ahead and advance this here real quick uh, just to move us forward here and be ready to do this. Okay. All right, we'll come back to that in a second though. So we were talking about the master database, and basically what it does is it's going to look for your paint files in these folders, and then it is going to apply them to the iRacing paint folders, which you set up in your path here, wherever you keep your paints for iRacing. Okay, um, so it basically copies from here to here, depending on the situation. And then the AI rosters is for AI later on, just aims the program to your roster's path. That's really all that does. A couple general settings down here, keep your car number persistent. So basically, if you always want to be driving the number 17 car, for instance, in your racing, then it's going to always load number 17 paints for you. Use custom numbers, obviously, same as what that does in iRacing. And then to clean car files and exit. So anything that it copies to your iRacing paint folders, just like trading paints would, once you close the program, it's going to clear all that back out, so you don't have a lot of buildup of old paint files in your iRacing folders. Okay. Um, and then let's talk about just kind of how this works. So we've got our race loaded up here. Okay, and we've got all default iRacing paint schemes. And so what I'm able to do here is apply the paints that I want to race against. So if you were in official racing and you were using trading paints, obviously you're just going to see whatever people have loaded up as their paint, and sometimes they're fine, but sometimes maybe they just don't really fit. For you, the immersion that you want. Let's say you're racing the 2003 cars, and you really would like to see those paint schemes and race against those paint schemes. Well, with this program, you could make it do that. Okay. And how that works is you set up a schedule here. The schedule is kind of the brain of this whole thing. Kind of what it uses to you have to have a schedule set up in order for it to work. You could set up a cup schedule like I did. I've just made historical schedules here, but you could literally set up the iRacing schedule that's coming up for next season and put those tracks and stuff in there if you wanted to. You can also not do that if you don't want to. You could just basically make a generic schedule and put like one track on here, and it wouldn't matter, and you could run just primary schemes. So that would just be a basic way if you just wanted to run just random paints that you selected to do it really easily without having to go through a lot of headache. But this is kind of geared more towards somebody who would maybe want it to run things like a little bit like a historical schedule and things like that. So what I've done here is I've made the 2007 Cup Series schedule, and essentially this has a logic now of selecting the right paints based on the track that you're at and the time of year that it's running. So for instance, in the case that we're running here is we're running a 2007 season. The replay is loaded up for Charlotte, and so it will look and see, well, was it closer in sim date to the Coke 600 or to the fall Charlotte race? In this case, the Coke 600 ran in May, and this is in April, so it's closer to the 600. And then it's going to pull the proper paint schemes for that race based on what I have right now set for car number. Okay, so let's go ahead and just run the program. You can see how this works. And it copied 45 drivers over, and it did 8 secondary schemes out of the total. So then if I refresh our paints, it's going to start propagating all these into the field here. So the kind of the neat part about this is if I just did primaries, then this 17 car, where my mouse is, would have just been the regular DeWalt scheme. But because we have this R&L carrier scheme that ran in that race, and we set it up in our schedule, so if we go to our 17 car here, we can see that secondary paint for Charlotte is set here. So it knows, hey, this is the paint it's supposed to be using for this race, so it's going to load that paint. There's also another way to set these secondary paints up. You can do it by this grid system. So if you wanted to go in there in each one and say, okay, well, what car should be used in any given race track at any given time, this really becomes like how much time you want to put into it. If you're really passionate about having the right paint schemes at the right times, you just like seeing all these different ones, then you can really go really wild with these things. Again, I'm using this car as an example, but obviously, there's a lot of people who are painting all these different cars for Xfinity and Cup and trucks. And this is a way that you could really use all of them if you wanted to take the time to set it up. And the nice thing too is, if more than one person is using the program, then multiple people could work on it and say, hey, I'm going to build a roster for 2025 Xfinity and all the paints and have everything set right. And they can definitely do that and make this all work really well. So anyway, as you can see, so it loaded up the 17 here. It loaded up the 19 Fantastic Four car, this Chocolate Checks car. Now, just to demonstrate, if we were to hit primary only, and then we run our automated sync again, and I think I have to stop and then run it. So now if I reload, we're going to see, oh, let's see, maybe that didn't work. Oh, well, it kind of did. So for my car, it's keeping it persistent is probably why it did that. Um, but at any rate, it's still a new program, so there's a few bugs I got to work out. But as you can see, most of these it replaced. So the 19 car, it replaced with just the regular 19 instead of the Fantastic Four car. The 43 car got replaced with its default paint scheme. So a lot of these cars are now the DuPont cars. Now it's just regular scheme. So it's just running the primaries now. Okay. And if you don't care about secondary schemes so much and you just wanted to run against all the primary schemes, you could just put them all into a primary folder, and you wouldn't even have to hit primary only for that, because it only looks for secondary schemes. If it doesn't see them, then it's going to fall back on those primaries anyway. So that's how that works. Here's the other thing you can do with this. So obviously we set it up by car number. The league that we're running this, the Winstall League, so it's everybody's car numbers are kind of matching these cars in a way. I don't have every car. I don't own every paint file for every car. These are only the ones I've personally painted, so that's why you see some of these cars just showing as default iRacing, because I didn't pay anything for them. But we can also do this, and we could just set it to do fully random, and then we'll go ahead and start that automated sync. All right, and everything's loaded in. So then we refresh again, and now it's just going to apply the paints. Now it's going to keep mine persistent because it wants to keep that 17 car the same all the time. But now it's just going to apply random paints, primary and secondaries, to random cars throughout the field. So we get this Home Depot NASCAR Day car that ran at Texas. We get the Dish Network number 16. This 46 car that was on this car before is now over here, and the 19's up here. So it's just kind of mixed them up. And so, like, again, if you were just to be running like in regular races and you had a big roster of paints that it could randomly select from and just apply to different cars, it could definitely do that. And this would be probably the best way if I was to do official racing. It's probably the way I'd probably do it, just because if you do it by number, especially, in the case of this car, there's only one car model for it. But, most of the top 3 oval cars, there's 3 different manufacturers. So you would have to have a number 1 car for Toyota, Ford, and Chevy. Number 2 car, same thing, just to cover all the bases for it. But if you did it by random, if you had 15 to 20 of each, then you're probably going to be pretty much covered every time, even with the way things split and all that stuff. So, and I'm talking about NASCAR a lot because that's what I know and that's what I kind of like. But you could do this with any cars, GT3s or anything. You could use this program same way. You just set it up to work how you want. It also has some other options in here too that I like. This one's called by user ID, and basically it's going to apply the paints according to the user ID that's set up in this ID roster here, for instance. Okay, and again, this is for Winstall League, so if I apply these, it's basically going to apply the same as it did the car numbers, because they kind of tend to match. But if you were running a league situation, and you wanted to make sure, if you're broadcasting, you're like, I want everybody to be in the right paints all the time, nobody loads up with the wrong thing accidentally or any of that stuff, then you have the paints on your local machine, you apply them by the user ID, it works every time, it can't miss. So that's kind of just a feature I wanted to add. I also added this called priority random. So, and we're going to go ahead and run this. Priority random is set by this paint priority, and basically it's going to go by the highest I-rated cars, which is going to be the lowest car numbers in an official session, and it's going to apply the paints that you want sort of in an order. So for instance, in this situation, the number 1 car is going to be the number 5 of Kyle Busch, the number 2 car would be the number 24 of Jeff Gordon, the number 3 car would be Ryan Newman, etc. And we'll see kind of how that works here. So let's go ahead and refresh again. Should have transferred everything, but it didn't. So small bug I have to work out. I changed it to have this stop button, which is causing me to have to hit start and then stop every time, which shouldn't be the case. So that'll be something that we fix up here. But it might have been working actually, but we'll see. All right, so let's find the number 1 car in this field, which is Larry, and we'll go to the chase camera. So we can see here that this car is the 5 car. He's the number 1 in the session, but on our paint priority, that comes out to the number 5 car. The number 2 car isn't visible yet for me. Let's just maybe go a lap or 3 ahead, and eventually he'll show up. All right. And then we'll have to reload it because he wasn't visible. So it was just doing its random thing from before. So the number 2, we don't have to reload this right. So the number 24 car was the one we had set as our second priority. So that's the number 2 car in this session. If we go to, now we don't have a 3, 4, and 5. So this is kind of a good demonstration of what would happen in an official session, most likely, because with the different makes available, you set all your order by the actual make and model. So you'll have skips. So if you set, for instance, let's say you're running 2003 cars and you had the Monte Carlo, and cars 1 and 2 were Chevrolets, but then the next Chevrolet wasn't until car 6. Okay, well then it's going to apply your third selection on your list. So this number 3 goes to the number 6 car because that's his order in the lobby of that particular car. So when it's a single car model through the whole field, it should just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and just down the line. But you would have multiple models that you would have set up. So you would have set up a car priority for your Chevrolet Monte Carlo, and then you would have set up a car priority for your Ford Taurus, and it would have just done them in order of those car models numbers. So, but that's how that works. It's pretty simple. The other thing is when you're setting these up, and you notice it's always just grabbing the TGAs, but it automatically knows to grab the MIP files. Okay, so if there's a spec map with the car, so in this case, I have a spec map for the regular Ford Taurus in the master database. It didn't put a spec map in for the secondaries of this 2007 series yet, so it doesn't show them. It says it's got an X because it doesn't see any, but it'll just see them by automatic. They just sort of have to be named the same as your main file. And then the same with decal layers. So if you had decal layers on your cars, then it would also see it. It just looks for the name and of that TGA, and then you add a -D on it for the decal, and that's what it looks for. So pretty straightforward, but it sees everything, and there's not as much. You don't have to hunt down and apply each one. You just have to be in that folder, and then you can kind of see what that would look like here. If we go to the 03 Taurus, for instance, we've got the Rusty Wallace Miller Lite Ford TGA, and then the Rusty Wallace Miller Lite Ford MIP, so it knows what to do. So that's pretty much how that works. I do want to just go one more time here, and let's see if we can go into a live session. Let's see if we can spectate if anybody's driving this thing. We're going to look for the Gen 4 Cup. Okay. So, yep, there's some people in there. Okay, so let's just hit to watch that. Okay. Doesn't matter. I am going to close this out. Let's just change this to fully random. Sure. Okay. And we actually need to open our application back up here. Probably didn't even need to reset it, but I just decided to, just in the interest of making sure that everything works properly here. Still very much in beta, so what you'll see here is these are set up for doing 2005. And if I go to 2005 and then I select the classic NASCAR and I go to the Taurus for the number 17, we can already see it's loading up these secondaries based on that. Now they are at Michigan this week, so theoretically it should load up this number 17 Carhartt car based on the date. But maybe not. We'll have to see what the sim date is because it's going to pick. So it'll either be the DeWalt car or the Carhartt car, depending on what date it's closer to. Being that we're in May, it's probably just going to be the DeWalt car. And then we can look at our secondary paints and see if were there any others made for that particular race. For these Michigan races. So potentially we would have the Batman's Begins or anything else. I will say that I've set it to random. So being that it's random, it's not going to do anything. But we could do it by priority random. Let's try that because that should still apply the proper paint schemes. And we'll go ahead and start that automated sync. So what it's doing now, just kind of like Trading Paints does, it's just looking for well, of all the things I didn't expect to crash, I didn't think iRacing was going to crash on me. Maybe that session ended or something. We're right at the end of it. Well, I don't know. Oh, yeah, that session did end. That's what happened. Okay, so nothing to spectate for that. Oh, bummer. Okay, well, and nobody in the practice sessions, so I guess I could try and refresh that real quick and just see if anything populates real quick before I give up on this. Okay. Nope. All right. Well, there's nothing there. So that's just how it goes, I guess. All right. So, but with that said, that's how it works. It works the same way. There's nothing really special to say about it. So that's what it does. Again, if you have the paint schemes on your computer, then you can set these up. You can see whatever you want to race against at any given time. I will say this, so you could set, for instance, just if you were like, I just want to race against a certain, selection of cars. If you do Force Global Primary, it's kind of the same thing as this paint pool thing. It just does it. It takes away the auto select. But you could say, oh, well, I want to race against the Chicagoland cars. Then you could select that, and that's what would propagate when you loaded up your session. So that's that part of it. Let's go ahead and move over here, and we are going to start talking about the AI aspect of it. So the AI racing here works off that same schedule and secondary paint scheme system. So essentially what it does is because the paints are transferred different with AI, so what I've seen people do, for instance, they said, hey, I want to do the 2005 season, but I want every race to have all the right cars. So you'll see on Trading Paints, you'll see 2005 Daytona 500, 2005 Fontana's second race, Auto Club 500, whatever it was, and it's all just kind of set up that way. And every time if you want to race it, you got to go there, you got to favorite that roster, you got to download it, and all this stuff. So what this is trying to do is really streamline that, because it's a lot of work for them to put together those rosters um, and do all that, on a case by case basis. So what the app does here is it actually creates the rosters each time. You can actually export each roster with all the right drivers in it, and it's also going to do the correct paint schemes based on your schedule and your secondary paint system if you have them. So that's what it does. It's kind of makes it so where you could race a whole season of AI against the right cars. And again, I'm using the 2003 cars as an example just because I painted a lot of those. I could also do the 2007 season, kind of show that, but we just kind of looked at that. Um, but all the people who want to say, oh, I want to race the 2003 season, well, you could do it this way. And if you've got all the paint schemes on your computer, then this actually will have like the JSONs in there and everything, so it would just constantly every time you went to a race. So for instance, let's say we went to, so just to give you an example, it says active car numbers 72 out of 59. So in 2005 there were 72 unique car numbers that ran, and then all the different drivers that ran. So we can see, for instance, under the 00 car there were 6 different drivers that tried to run races in this car, and so they're all there, right? Well, what we can do is we can go to our first race. So let's say we wanted to run the Bud Shootout. It's going to automatically disallow the cars that did not attempt the race. And this is based off of this AI driver list. So essentially this is set up, and this has everybody who attempted every race. These pink circles indicate that they did not qualify for the race. So you can right click on them and you can say, oh, Robbie Gordon did not qualify for the Daytona 500. So he's got a little purple dot. And then when I go to the Daytona 500 here, you're going to see that he did not qualify. Now, the neat thing about this is, if you were doing an AI season, the feature that I want to add to it is, if you want, you can either just show the DNQ cars as just will never load, okay? But some people like to see those cars in the first practice session. So what you would do is you would have them all in there, and then we'll have a little button on the app somewhere, and when it switches over to qualifying, anybody who has a DNQ flag would automatically get disqualified from the race, and then you're going to race against the 43 drivers that you want to race against. So that's kind of how that would work. The other thing that it does automatically here is, if you remember, we set our car number here to be persistent. So it's going to eliminate the 17 car. It's at least supposed to automatically do that. It would put them inactive, and basically when it does that, because it's a conflict with your car, I've been making a few changes to the program, so certain things break, and that was one of them that did work, and now apparently isn't working. But it will automatically make the 17 inactive because you're driving it. Okay, so if you would, and it just would basically, so instead of you having 43 AI cars start the grid and you're a 44th car, it would eliminate that car from contention. Now, obviously, if you run different car number than what everybody else ran, then you would never have any conflicts, and then you're good. So, but you can see how many drivers it's going to export over here. So if I go to export to iRacing, it's going to tell me that this folder already exists because I've already done this, but it's going to basically export all the cars for the Daytona 500 and all the drivers for it. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to go to AI Racing, and let's do a single race. And we're going to be at Daytona, I think. Yep, we're at Daytona, so we'll go ahead and do that. And then while that is loading up, now the one thing is, because I didn't deactivate the Matt Kenseth car, he's probably going to... Oh, so it did deactivate him, No, it didn't. It's right there. So it changed his number, and that's why like it's supposed to deactivate him because then it puts him in a weird number, and then his paint won't match because well his paint will match maybe, but it's gonna put him in a weird number. But um, normally it tries to prevent that conflict from happening based on the car number you selected. But we'll see what it does here. But we can see all the drivers who attempted the Daytona 500 are in the practice session. So we've got Greg Sachs, we've got John Andretti. I think actually made the race, but we've got Larry Gunzelman, we've got Hermie Sadler, we've got all these people in here. Andy Belmont. They didn't actually make the race, but they tried to make it, so therefore they're going to show up here. This does have logic. Now it's going to tell you that there was no TGAs because I don't have all of these cars painted. Like again, I'm not using anybody else's cars. It's just the ones that I personally painted. So obviously, you could do it that way and paint all your own cars, or if you get on trading paints and you collect cars that people have put up there, you could use those cars too. Wouldn't really matter. But as you can see here, so it's loaded up this number 4 car for Mike Wallace, the 07 of Dave Blaney. This 88 looks weird because since it's got so many cars here, it's got 57 cars, it's doubling up a lot of the cars. So you're seeing a car inside a car there. And one of them's painted and one of them is not. So Bobby Labonte, I don't have a paint for, is what it is. But we do have a Dale Jarrett paint. We don't have Kevin Harvick, but we do have Kerry Earnhardt. No Boris said, but we've got the Sterling Marlin car. Now, just like in the regular paint selection that we were doing earlier with the official racing or anything else, it will fall back on whatever your scheme you have available. So I don't have a primary scheme for the 40, but I have a secondary, so that went into primaries just because. So it's just using that. But it would use secondaries if it sees them. And then, again, because this is a super speedway, so that's one of the things that was coded into the program is it knows, based on my selection, that Daytona is a super speedway. So when it loads Daytona, Legacy Daytona in this case, it knows to put in super speedway paints based on that. So same with Talladega, it would know to load those files so it wouldn't accidentally load the wrong paint. It also has this exhibition flag. I didn't really talk about this, but this basically is because these races aren't points races, you can tell it to ignore them for the date matching purposes. But that's what that's there for. So yep, we're just looking at all these cars now, and a bunch of them with paint schemes that are loaded up. And all the right cars and all the right drivers are in there, and all that stuff. Let's see if we can get like a faraway view. And then also in this, so we can just kind of keep looking through it here. So that's for Daytona 1. We see 57 drivers attempted that race. If we flip it over to Fontana, we'll see 48 drivers attempted. So it's automatically adjusting your JSON roster each time. So when you export it, all the drivers are going in there that are supposed to be there. The drivers that didn't attempt this race, that attempted the last one, they're out of it. And your iRacing season, if you set up a season, should keep track of all that too. All the different drivers that went in. And then I am working on this result standing, so you could actually upload your results, and you could also track owners' points based on the car number, because a lot of these cars, they're switching drivers out all the time, so that car keeps running, but it's different driver. So if you want to see what the owner's points would be, you'd be able to do that. But anyway, so we can just see all these different ones that it's gonna load up, and then because of the 2 car classes, so we've got different paint files, and you got to have multiple paint files when you have multiple manufacturers. I think you can put up to 16 different car models, because I think that's what iRacing will let you do in AI. But that's how that works. And then you actually set the driver per car number. So just use Johnny Benson maybe here as an example. Actually, we'll use Kenny Wallace. So Kenny Wallace drove the 00 car a lot. but he also drove the 78 car. So if we go down here, you'll see him as a driver for that same car here. So it'll move the drivers around into different cars as needed. And again, it all comes back to the exporting of the JSON file. If I remember correctly, he attempted maybe it's later in the season. So let's kind of rifle through here and see. Oh, there you go. So he attempted Dover, and he actually made that race in the 78. So if you ran that race, he would be in it. So that's how that works. And basically, these rosters are importable and exportable. So if you set up the CSV files, you can import all of them, which just makes it a little easier to set them up. You know, because you can do it, I mean, by going in here and clicking and adding based on who's available as a driver. So if we go here and say, oh, well, the Bud Shootout, and it was Derek Cope, and then you could add them in. But they have to be in the roster for it to see them first. But you can also just upload your entire CSV roster of all the races and all the people, and then you import it, and then you generate the roster from the grid, and it's going to take all those drivers and it's going to automatically put them where they need to go. I will say with the multiple manufacturers, it's going to keep asking you questions about where they need to go, so you have to kind of, you know, say, oh, well, you know, the 00 is a Chevrolet, so that puts in the slot 1 Chevrolet column over here, and if they're in a Ford, they're in car slot 2, all that stuff. So yeah, so for AI racing, it could save some time, you know, compared to like trading paints, where you have to set up all those different ones, and you have to keep favoriting all those rosters, and you have to go put all those different paints in there. In this case, once the primary paints are there, you're done with that. You never have to put a primary paint in again. You would have to put in the secondary paints as they come up and as they get painted, you know. So for instance, if you were doing the Xfinity season for this year, you know, and you had a bunch of primaries in there and somebody painted a new one, you could put it into your secondaries folder and then apply it to your database, and then you could run it. So that's kind of how that works. Still working on the app. It's still pretty new. There's a lot of features that I'm kind of ironing out and still wanting to get worked out, and you know, hopefully get a bunch of these rosters done. So I've got a few of them in here right now, but you know, I guess I could show. Let's see here. Let's do one. So let's do 2004. So this is for the Legacy Gen 4 car. So this session year, I'll set it to 2004, season year to 2004, schedule 2004 Cup, and then we're going to go to the AI driver list here and import the CSV that I've got for it, which is this one. And it imported a bunch of these things. And then it asks, would you like to generate the roster from the imported CSV? Yes. No, because I wanted to set this for the, let's try that again. We want to set this for the Legacy Gen 4 car. There it is. And season 2004 Cup. Yeah, you got to set that too. Let's try that again. So import 2004. Yes. Yes. Now, so what it does is it looks for the drivers in the database, and it'll try and match them. So if it's missing them, which I may have broken this, let's see if it's coming up with just a bunch of these. We're just going to skip and use defaults for all these people. Okay. So it didn't find Joe Nemechek in our... Oh, and the reason is because of a typographical error. That's not how you spell his name, so it didn't find him. We'll fix that. But if you go to this historical driver database, I put as many of these people in here as I could. And what I try and do is just get the career driver ratings that they had, and then an average career rating. Just kind of helps to sort of set a baseline for their driver rating. But so, for instance, if we go look at Kenny Wallace here, so it does a birth date match. So he was 41 in 2004 based on his birth date. His skills and all that set based on his driver rating and things like that. So that's how those things actually operate. Um, Most people would probably go in and change the skill ratings and stuff around anyway. So you can kind of go do that pretty easily. Obviously, you can just go in there and just change them up. That's still a ton of work for anybody to do, but you can do it. You can set them race by race as well. I'm just trying to kind of think about how that should be done. You could use this global skill, so that would always, no matter what race, use the ones from this global. Okay, but if you didn't check that, then you could say, oh well, Kenny Wallace was or Ward Burton was good at Daytona, but he wasn't very good at Rockingham, so I'm going to back up his numbers there or whatever. And so you could definitely tailor it to each one if you wanted to. But I'm just kind of working on the implementation of that in terms of like making it as painless as possible, because going through 78 different drivers through 39 different events is kind of a lot. So I know people do it, but hopefully there would be a way to do it in some sort of more reasonable way than just having to click through each one and manually enter it all. But that's just something to kind of consider for down the road. What I would do right now is just set them for global for the season and go with it. But anyway, that's how it works. So it uploaded all the drivers in. Now I had to set up that grid. That took a little bit of time, but once you kind of have that, and the template would be out there for anybody to set that up in the CSV, they could just go in there and enter those in, and then you import it, and it makes it pretty easy. The other thing you can do actually, so let's delete this. So you could make a new one and call it 2004. So we're going to make this one. We're going to do the same thing, but this is going to generate the roster from the paint files. And so what it did there is it went in and all the paint files that I have in that master database. Let's see if I can show that again. So if I go to that master database and look at the Legacy Gen 4 2004 Cup, it's going to pull all the numbers and names based on the file names in here. They have to follow this specific file order. Really all that matters is number, name, and year. Number is it has to have just so it knows where to place them. Name, obvious, and then the year is actually just a marker that tells it to stop reading any further. It doesn't care about anything after that. But then it can pull these rosters just based on the paint files that you have. So it's just kind of another way to do it that's quick, and especially if you just say, hey, these are the paint files I have and I want to make a season out of it, then you could just put them in your folder and select the season that you have. Now all mine are named 2004 season and stuff. You could name it whatever. It could be, my league season, and then you could go to it and, make a roster out of it. So you could do this any number of different ways. But ultimately it lets you import them that way. So it's just another way to do it. So kind of cool. But yeah, like basically all of these things, again, is it a replacement for trading paints? Not really. It's sort of an alternative in a way. I mean, trading paints still is going to be a massive database for everybody to file share and do all that stuff. And if you just want to see what people have created, that's what you're going to use. You're not going to bother with something like this. But if you're doing AI racing especially, and you want to be able to set up a season, and you want to be able to have all those paint jobs and all that good stuff, then this is definitely an option for you to do it. So and I may have frozen up here when it had to load all these driver cards back up, but yeah, that's what it is. That's how it works. and it's like I said, it's been kind of an interesting experience to go through and go through all the coding and everything that goes with this. um, and to be able to do it basically without any real knowledge, it's definitely interesting. I'm sure that anybody who is a real software engineer is looking at this going, the code's probably horrific looking and there's going to be all kinds of stuff in it. That's probably true, but overall it's been kind of fun, and maybe it's a useful utility for people who want it, and as the functionality gets better and better, um, keep improving it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope it was kind of fun to see. I'm looking to try and make it available to everybody here at some point, and uh, kind of get people's feedback on it and what they'd like to see improved or changed, or if they think it's useful or if they don't think it's useful. Anything like that would be kind of cool. So yeah, I appreciate you watching, and I'll probably update again down the road. There are some other features I was adding to it. Some of it will depend a little bit on when the iRacing career mode launches and what that looks like. So I got some ideas for maybe some fun kind of gamey stuff in there. And then also just, like I said, making it more efficient and easier and all that stuff. So again, thanks for watching and have a good one.